Welcome to Fraud Friday. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking loan fraud, bankers, public officials, and borrowers who got caught, and attorneys.
Oh,
Delaney Sexton, Lance
Oh,
Sexton.
it's good to
Delaney,
be
what
here.
do we got for us?
well, I'm first going to start with the background, but here we have an attorney sentenced to 25 years for his role in a loan fraud scheme. Now, to take it back a little farther, there was a bank, Washington Federal Bank for Savings, and this bank was eventually essentially a family-run institution. The head of the bank was the third generation to actually run the bank. But at some point, their chief financial officer noticed there was something that didn't look quite right in these bank records. Our key person that we're talking about today, Kowalski, there was a loan that she spotted, and there was a big balance owed on it, but that was not seen anywhere. She eventually actually tried to blow the whistle, and I believe, John Gambara, ended up firing her. But anyway, what was going on is John Gambara would disperse advances without approval from the bank's board or loan committee. He didn't require any of these customers to sign bank documents promising to repay money or pledge any collateral, and all of these falsified records showed millions of dollars in outstanding loan balances paid off. And he ordered all of his bank employees to alter these documents in order to hide these various issues and compliance violations. And as you can imagine, when you do some unsavory practices, it didn't end up going well for the bank, and the bank collapsed in December 2017.
And how much? Let's see. It says $140 million in bad loans. And was one of the few banks, Lance, that was closed between the Great Recession and pandemic. That was a pretty solid performing years for
Oh yeah,
banks, but Washington Federal was the exception to the rule.
yeah. This reminds me, guys. I worked for FDIC a couple times in my career, assisting and closing financial institutions, and it can be a challenge because I've seen circumstances where lenders extended and dispersed money and didn't have the note documents to back it up, and when the FDIC comes in and closes it, then uh, they have to work hard to collect that money. I'm pretty impressed by them collecting 50 million of the 140 because, quite honestly, if I had a $10 million loan with no note, I'm like, you know, it's it's a challenge. So I mean, I've seen schemes like this, but I've never seen them at this dollar level.
Yeah, it was pretty high. And Mr. Kowalski was not what we described as necessarily a good-tempered citizen, is he, Delaney?
Not quite. He was not super compliant and did not make this easy throughout the investigation and all the legal proceedings. So recently he was sentenced to 25 years, 7.2 million restitution. And this is not really kind of a sentence. I mean, he owes almost $500,000 to the IRS, so he'll have to pay that back, of course. But he was cited as one of these key customers in the fraud, and they said that he, along with two others, received a pretty significant portion of the money here. And like I said, this was sent to him with no real documentation. He wasn't required to pay back the money. And after the bank collapsed, the FDIC was going to try to recover as much money and property as possible from him. But he said, no, I don't want that to happen. And he filed a fraudulent bankruptcy case. Not only that, he tried to conceal assets. And it didn't just end with him. He got family involved. His sister helped him conceal assets.
Wow.
And you know what? She ended up pleading guilty. So she got drug in as well, or I guess participated. But throughout this, I have a quote from the judge. This operation was a sham operation. It completely falsified records to benefit a few people, and it went on for years. You have never, ever accepted any role in this offense. You have denied liability. You have constantly played games with this court and other courts. You have hidden assets from the courts. You have yelled and screamed at the court. You are absolutely incapable of looking at the reality of this situation and your role in it.
Wow.
You do not have any respect for the rule of law. Ooh, go ahead.
Well, and the 25-year sentence speaks volume, guys. We've talked about fraud for years. When's the last time we've seen a 25-year sentence?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Delaney, you have to conclude your reporting with Mr. Pulaski's statement to the court. Go ahead.
Yes, he said, "It's too much for me. I'll die before then. This is not right. For all my hard work, I get a life sentence. This is very unfair. This is a day of evil."
Wow.
It seems like the judge and him may not agree.
It's a sad situation. And again, these are not victimless crimes. You have a 30-generation bank. You have employees at that bank.
Oh, yeah.
You have people who had their life savings invested in this bank. You have other customers. The reason why customers rely on community banks is for the personal service. They're willing to pay a little bit more than going to a Wall Street bank. But that's, and these are local communities who employ people. This is not victimless. And when justice is served, good for the judge, good for the justice system to correct these wrongs. Thank you very much for joining us today for Fraud Friday, so you can stop criminals from stealing from your bank.
Have a good weekend.